On this week's episode of the Rambler Sports Locker, men's volleyball accomplished something the team hasn't done since 2014, and Blaze Radosevic and his Ramble analyst discuss MLB salary cap rules.
Also, the women's golf team picked up their third team title of the season, and RSL reporter Annalise Ockenfels talks about the men's basketball culture. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Rambler Sports Locker. I'm Patricia Martinez.
And I'm Conor Bergin. Loyola men's volleyball was in action Thursday, April 5th, as the team took on Lindenwood in St. Louis. Junior Colin Mahan led the team with 14 kills, while senior Jeff Jendrick drilled another 9 for the Loyola attack. However, the efforts were not enough to hold back the Lions. After Loyola tied the match at 1 set apiece, Lindenwood won a tight set 29-27. Then they never trailed in the fourth set, winning 16-10 to shock the 8th-ranked Ramblers and take the match 3-1. The match was just Lindenwood's third conference victory of the season and cost Loyola a chance to win sole possession of the MIVA regular season championship. The team had a chance to redeem itself 2 days later in its regular season finale, Saturday, April 7th at Quincy. The Ramblers wasted no time getting back to their winning ways as they cruised past the Hawks in straight sets, winning each set by a margin of at least 5 points. This time it was the combo of senior Ricky Jevis and Jendrick leading the way as Jevis drilled a team-best 9 kills and Jendrick registered 4 blocks. The victory gave Loyola its first share of the MIVA regular season title since 2014. The Ramblers share the title with two-time defending national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Moving forward, Loyola will get another chance to meet with Lindenwood. The second seed Ramblers host the 7th seed Lions at Gentile Arena for the first round of the MIVA Conference Championship, Saturday, April 14th.
Last Sunday, April 8th, the women's golf team began the first round of the Indiana State Spring Invitational in Terre Haute, Indiana. On the first day of the Invitational, senior Jessie State and freshman Sabrina Hoskins showed strong opening rounds. The Ramblers carded a first-round team tally of 312, placing them 4th out of the 10 teams in the Invitational. On the final day, the Ramblers had an impressive turnout. Freshman Sabrina Hoskins turned in a 4 over par 76 to close play, claiming 5th place, while senior Jessie State and junior Lena Bowser both earned 10th place with a score of 155. With sophomore Morgan Brown's help, the team overcame a 6-stroke deficit to win the Indiana State Invitational. This victory is Loyola's third team title of the 2017-2018 season. The Ramblers' next stop is the 2018 Missouri Valley Conference Women's Golf Championship, which is set to take place April 15th through the 17th in Newton, Kansas. The men's basketball team season may have ended a few weeks ago, but the team is still on and in lots of people's mind. Their Final Four run captured America's hearts and the Loyola hearts of Loyola students. We found out which players students are particularly fond of.
I think that Ben Richardson is the cutest player. I'm definitely an eyes person, and he has really pretty eyes, really kind eyes, and he really puts his all into the game.
My opinion, my favorite basketball player is a merge of Clay and Ben, which I would like to call Peyton, because they're America's sweetheart and they're the best group of best friends in this country, and their love story will live on forever.
I think Dante Ingram is the cutest. He's in one of my classes and seems super nice, which is really a good quality.
I think Clayton Custer is the cutest. He has a good smile, pretty eyes, and he seems like he has a good personality from his interviews.
Marcus Towns, just his eyes just have a way to my heart. I just like when I look at them, they're just it's like an ocean on a sunrise.
I find Ben Richardson the cutest just because he's cute and good at basketball.
Loyola men's golf competed in its first competition in 3 weeks when they visited the University of Missouri April 9th and 10th for the Tiger Invitational. Freshman Devin Johnson posted his best score of the tournament in the third and final round Tuesday with a 70 to finish 12 above par and tied for 58th. The Ramblers finished the event sitting at 18th place in the standings out of 19 teams. After a week-long break, the team will be back in action and back in Missouri April 23rd and 24th when they travel to Cape Girardeau for the Missouri Valley Conference Championship. On this week's rant, RSL reporter Annalise Ockenfels asked whether or not Loyola is ready to bring the men's basketball team back to the big dance in the 2018-2019 season.
If you haven't watched the news lately, or if you live under a rock, you might not know that the Loyola men's basketball team actually made it to the NCAA tournament. Not only were they one of the 64 teams in March Madness, but they made it all the way to the Final Four. Loyola went 32-6 overall in the 2017-18 season, but if you've attended any home games at Loyola or even just walked around the campus, you probably know that sports really isn't a big deal, or at least it didn't used to be. The men's basketball team has played many a game in front of small crowds. We're talking 100 people type of small crowds. However, throughout the entire tournament, they kept preaching about how they were a team created by culture. So where did this created by culture motto come from? Because as far as I can tell, we don't have a sports culture on campus, which leads to the bigger question. Were the Ramblers' winnings truly a new culture they've created on campus, or was it pure luck? The Ramblers had a point to prove this season after becoming the Missouri Valley Conference regular season and tournament champions. They had to prove that they belonged at March Madness and that they were a force to be reckoned with. They didn't want to be another mid-major school that gets crushed in the first round. Dante Ingram's last-second three kept their chances alive. Clayton Custer and Marcus Towns' last-second shots got the team to the Elite Eight, and Ben Richardson's career-high game got them to San Antonio for the Final Four. They certainly proved they deserved to be dancing and playing with the big boys, but now they need to do it again. They need to prove that it wasn't just luck, that this culture they claim created them is real and still there. After all, culture is something that doesn't just appear one year and go away the next. So, Ramblers, were you created by culture, or was it just Sister Jean's prayers pulling you through the tournament? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's it for this week's rant. I'm Annalise Sockenfels. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Annalise. The women's softball team hosted a 3-game series this past weekend against Missouri Valley Conference rival Illinois State. On April 7th, the Ramblers fell to the Redbirds with a final score of 3-0. In the first few innings, the Ramblers had 5 runners on base. However, they just couldn't make the runs needed to put them on the scoreboard. The following day, April 8th, Loyola was set to play a doubleheader against Illinois State. For the first game, Loyola fell short once again with a final score of 8-0. In the 5th inning, Illinois State scored 6 runs. Despite the loss, sophomore Shannon McGee extended her streak of consecutive games, reaching base safely to 26. Sophomore Sophia Swain's pitch-hit double pushed her season batting average to .500. Due to frigid temperatures, the second game of the day was canceled. On Wednesday, April 11th, the Ramblers played a doubleheader against Notre Dame at Melissa Cook Stadium. Loyola scored 5 runs in the final 2 innings, including 3 in the 6th, leaving the Ramblers with 8-4 victory, ending their three-game losing streak. Later that afternoon, the Ramblers' second game of the day, the Irish bounced back with a 1-0 victory. The Ramblers are scheduled to be back on the field when they open a 3-game weekend series at UNI on Saturday, April 14th.
Men and women's track and field both took home first-place finishes in the team event at the Benedictine Invitational Saturday, April 7th in Lisle, Illinois. The Ramblers did not let below-freezing temperatures affect their performance, as both teams combined for 12 first-place finishes. For the women, Laura Bestel finished the 800-meter run with a time of 2 minutes and 18.49 seconds to take the event by just 6/100ths of a second. And for the men, Dimitri Panisi won the 3,000-meter title with a time of 8 minutes and 51.78 seconds. Both teams took home titles in the field, with sophomores Eric Burns and Mackenzie Arnold winning the long jump. The men and women also swept first-place finishes in both 4x100-meter and 4x400-meter relays. Next up, Loyola will compete at the Mount Sac Relays and Brian Clay Invitational beginning Thursday, April 19th in California. With the Cubs home opener taking place Tuesday, April 10th, Major League Baseball is back in full swing.
Blaze Radosevich and his Ramble analyst discuss whether it's fair that the MLB doesn't have a salary cap in this week's Ramble.
Hello and welcome to this week's Ramble. I'm Blaze Radosevich and I'm joined today by Claire Philpy and Kelsey Frew. Today we'll be discussing whether or not Major League Baseball should have a salary cap. We'll start with Claire. The MLB is the only sport in the United States to not have a salary cap. Is this fair?
Yeah, because they do have the luxury tax. So anything that is overspent by their limit that they put on each team, that tax goes down to the teams that don't have as much money to spend. So I mean, there you're evening it out. You're allowing the teams to pay for a more expensive player while still not complimenting, but giving the younger guys or the less fortunate guys like a gift, quote unquote, so they can afford the more expensive players in the future.
I gotta disagree. I think that the MLB really needs to have a salary cap, and though they do have
Luxury tax?
Thank you. They have the luxury tax. It's not enough for the really, like, it's good for like the middle teams, but the teams who really don't have a lot of money, it's not going to cut it. And like the best team to take advantage of that is, I believe, the Marlins. And even then, they had to spend years building a team and doing very poorly because that wasn't enough.
Right, but you say a good example. Like, every team has to go through a rebuilding phase. I mean, the Blackhawks are doing it right now. The Cubs did it for 108 years. I mean, let's be honest. Like, everybody has to do it eventually. The White Sox are currently doing it. So, like, that salary cap, like, it just limits to how much you're going to be able to spend on a player, and it's going to potentially limit what players you can get.
It's already limiting what players you can get. And even if you are doing this building up, creating a better team, as soon as that player gets like good enough to go for a higher salary, like wealthier teams can snatch them. You can see like good teams.
But I mean, if the owner if you really want a good player, the owner's just gonna have to pony up and spend the money for it. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not about the money. It's about who can recruit the best players.
It's absolutely about the money.
It's not. I mean,
this is all about the money.
Right.
If it were not about the money, like, players wouldn't be asking for higher salaries. This wouldn't be a problem at all.
But the reason they don't have a salary cap is because the owners and the players, they understand they're in agreement. The salary cap is there so that the players don't have to keep fighting with the owners for money. Like, that's
the salary cap is there so that like it puts teams on even footing. I mean, this is about talent distribution. You have the Yankees, who have more money than anyone else in the league.
Right, but it doesn't matter. They're just recruiting better players.
They're not recruiting better players. They're
do you work for the Yankees?
No. The MLB is the only. Here's the thing. Baseball is the only sport with a direct correlation between how much money the team has and how many wins they get. The Yankees don't find the good players. Everyone knows who the good players are. The Yankees are the only ones who can afford them.
Now, is it fair that cities like New York, like the Yankees, and Chicago with the Cubs, and LA Dodgers, is it fair that those big cities can have more money over cities like Milwaukee with the Brewers or Kansas City with the Royals?
Well, I mean, those teams that are spending more money, the money is still going down to the guys with not a lot of money. Like, if you're going over and you're hitting that luxury tax space, then they're still getting the money. They're just not doing anything with it.
I just don't think the luxury tax is enough. If you have the salary cap and you do it, like, you can see it working well in the other leagues.
But it's not, though. Look at the NHL. Look at the Blackhawks. They're stuck with Kane, Taves, Keith, and Crawford because their salary cap is so low and those guys have such a high cap hit.
But
so, like, they're stuck. They can't rebuild because they're stuck with those guys with the huge cap hit.
You're looking at each individual team instead of the league as a whole. So, yes, like, this team is stuck with these players, but that means that other teams are stuck with other players, and there's more balance across the board.
Final statement.
I don't know. I think it's dumb. I think salary cap across the board is dumb. I think everybody should get rid of it, and they should just move to a luxury tax because it does limit those specific players who are better from going to other places. You have Eric Carlson right now, who's a free agent in the NHL, and he can't go anywhere because nobody can take his cap hit.
Kelsey.
Luxury tax isn't enough, and it does the exact opposite of stopping players from going to other teams, because they're going to go to the team that can pay them the most, and that's the Yankees, that's the Red Sox. It's not the teams that build them up. So you're looking at, you got a cap, you got even distribution across the board, you've got more interesting games because teams are more balanced. It makes for a more interesting season, and it makes teams more even across the board.
All right, I'm going to have to side with Kelsey on this one. I really don't think it's fair that cities like Milwaukee, the Brewers, can only spend $70 million a year while the Red Sox can spend $230 million. Well, that's it for this week's Ramble. If you want to get in on the conversation, use the hashtag RSLRamble. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Blaze. I'd have to agree with Kelsey. I think you have to help out the small markets, add a salary cap so we have more parity in the game.
I agree with you, Conor. For a full episodes and the chance to get in on the conversation, follow and like our social media handles for an up-to-date look at all things Rambler Sports.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Conor Bergin.
And I'm Patricia Martinez. Check back next week for another episode of the Rambler Sports Locker.
And as always, don't forget to turn out the lights.